I wanted to win, and I didn't want to just win. I wanted to like destroy them, just completely crush them. And I beat them by a good, 30 minutes, 20, 30 minutes. So it was super satisfying, that win.
Chris and Desi are winners of the Challenge USA. Congratulations, first and foremost. A couple of amazing wins here. I want to ask, have you gotten your checks yet? Any fun purchases in the works?
Checks last time I checked, I haven't gotten it yet.
Okay.
Bank account, still the regular account, but hopefully in the next few days that'll change. For me, we are gonna probably stash it away and find some property and build a home here in South Carolina. So putting that away for a down payment down the road. With that, nothing too crazy.
And
my big purchases, I'm going to get a new laptop. I hope it doesn't zonk out during this interview like it did on the last. I need a new laptop desperately. I got to splurge on that. Get a new cell phone. So I've got the latest iPhone camera. And then the rest I plan to save, invest, figure out something responsible to do with it.
Yeah, definitely. It's a nice chunk of change, and you both deserved it and earned it tenfold. So let's go and talk about the final before we get into any of the drama from the course of the season. And I wanted to ask too, because I did see some of the photos of the final and there was maybe an overnight portion. So I didn't know if either of you could speak a little bit about that and what that overnight portion entailed and what maybe those conversations were like during it. Desi,
I'll take it. Chris, yeah. Oh, you want me to do it? Chris loved the overnight. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm kidding. Chris hated the overnight. So the overnight, essentially, you saw us kind of kumbaya-ing around the fire. And then it cut to the next day, which was really frustrating for us because we're like, nobody even knows the mental torture that we experience in the hours after that. So TJ comes out and tells us that essentially we have to stand on these tiny pillars and count to an hour. So you can either stay for an hour, anywhere between an hour and 5 minutes. If you hop off before an hour, you've got to do it again. If you hop off after an hour and 5 minutes, you have to do it again. But there's no clock, there's nothing other than what you internally think is an hour to sort of set that up. So we were literally counting second by second, trying to count to an hour. The first time we went under, second time we went over. Mind you, like it's super windy, it's cold, we're all dehydrated because we just finished vomiting our brains out. We ended up staying there for a cumulative hour or 3 hours and some change. And it was just got a couple hours of sleep and then they woke us up to run day 2 of the final.
No way. Chris, you liked it in particular? Were you the one that was going over and over again?
No, it was just torturous. That was definitely my least favorite part of the final. Is all I wanted to do was sleep, but I was standing on a pillar that my feet were barely on, like probably toes hanging off of, and had to count second by second. It was like a purgatory, it was like there neither heaven nor hell. I was just in this state of insanity, counting every second and hoping that by the time I finished counting, we were going to be able to go to sleep. And we did it wrong twice.
On the money, or was it a collective effort that you guys were working together?
Bananas got it right the first time. So he got the most sleep. He got it right. And then we were all working together. Different people were counting. And then we had verification counters, making sure the seconds were timed out in their own head. And I'm glad that we did it together, like misery enjoys company. And this is definitely one of those situations that it was nice that we were working together instead of everyone doing it on their own. It would have been a total shit show if we were all doing it on our own, to be honest. Someone would have totally stood up there for 6 hours if we hadn't decided to work together.
Oh my gosh, but you guys made it through and you ended up coming out on top despite the lack of sleep there. And you had 2 very rewarding journeys for different aspects, for different reasons. Desi, of course, you had the redemption from last season. Chris, you were an elimination magnet. Desi, I want to know from you first, what were your emotions like touching that flag for the first time after the final went the way it did last time?
Yeah, it was one of those things where I didn't know that I would cry until I couldn't not cry. So I think I didn't even realize the emotional turmoil and kind of the pressure I put on myself. I think in my head, season 1, I'd built my confidence to a level where I was like, I'm going to win this final. And then I didn't even get a chance to compete in the final, essentially. So when I decided to make, to come back season 2, it was like, I have to finish this job. But then there's also the fear that like, I've also now brought the 3 strongest women to the final. And so I'm here, but can I win? So winning, and I think especially winning with, my 2 allies from the get-go, like to see, like I was emotional for myself to cross the finish line, almost more emotional to see Chanel cross the finish line, but just because I know she had started so far behind. And while like Michaela was also part of our alliance, I slept next to Chanel every single day in that house. And we kind of went from not being friends at all day 1 to just being like so super, super tight. She knows everything about me that it was just such an emotional moment to like share that with her, and also with Chris, who I was also working with.
Yes, of course. And Chris, kind of a similar question there. You beat a lot of the guys that were throwing you in so many different times. So what was that feeling like, knowing that you beat them and in such spectacular fashion, really?
Yeah, it was very satisfying. The vengeance there was it was perfect. It was I wanted to win, and I didn't want to just win. I wanted to like destroy them, just completely crush them. And I beat them by a good, 30 minutes. So it was super satisfying, that win, especially it was up against the people that I knew were targeting me. I knew that they were some of the toughest competitors in the house. And so to make it to the end and finish the way that I did was just perfect.
30 minutes. That's crazy. So you were up there 30 minutes before. I think it was Corey was the next one to get up there, or was it? Wow.
Yeah.
That is a dominant finish there. And this was your very first final. They've been in multiple ones. They know how this goes. So, I mean, very, very impressive win there, Chris and Desi. I mean,
thank you.
I was very happy with the outcome personally. I was like, oh my gosh, the Survivors again, 2nd season in a row, we got Survivor out on top. I imagine you guys have a big talk with all the Big Brother players and MTV players. Any fighting words left for them too? Like 2 seasons in a row, Survivor. I'd be talking my shit.
Yeah, our target, Survivor target's pretty big. The target's pretty big on the Survivor players. So we're gonna try to, limit that as best we can. But I think the cat's out the bag. Like we're contenders and we're competitors. Any person that plays Survivor and transfers over to the challenge, you gotta watch out for them.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So maybe you guys would have like a bigger target on your backs if you were to come back for another season, because this kind of does lead into my next series of questions. Would you guys be interested in even coming back to the show, or do you want to maybe go out on top?
I mean, I think anybody who's won is always going to have a bigger target, right? Even the people who are former winners, they have a big target. Other shows have a bigger target when they come play a game like the challenge for the first time. I think I'm on the fence about this. It takes a lot of sacrifice to, leave everything, drop everything, have no communication really for 7 weeks and hope like my business doesn't fail and my relationship doesn't crumble. Like there's just a lot that you put at risk when going on the show, especially, someone like me and Chris who like have businesses and have jobs that do rely on us. And so we are putting a lot of responsibility and trust in someone else to keep things going day in and day out. So I will never say never, but it has to be the right timing and business has to be in the right spot where I don't think things will fall apart.
Right. So got to be a perfect storm there. Chris, what about you?
Yeah, same. I mean, it takes a lot to leave, especially with where I'm at in life with a business and with, a wife and a kid, and things are good. So it would have to be like this penultimate, like epic season to say yes to. So the chances of me coming back for USA season 3 are very low, I would say.
Okay,
and Chris is very rich, in the words of Mimi Leaks.
I know 2 wins are already like I don't need anything else. You guys can have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, I mean, these in the same way that I put my butt on the line and I'm an underdog in the games that I play, I'm also see myself as an underdog in life. And so no matter how good I'm doing, I always think that I could be doing so much better and I need to have something to prove. So I don't know. It's just how I'm wired.
Yeah, I mean, jumping off that point, like something to prove, do you think that, I know at the beginning of the season, you kind of mentioned that people had a lot to say about your Survivor win. So do you think coming out on top of this season of the Challenge USA and in such an impressive way that you did, do you think that will kind of stop some of that talk or maybe change their minds about you as a game player?
Yeah, I think the couch critics, they can change their stance on whether I was a deserving winner or not. I definitely earned this one, and it was part of the having that chip on my shoulder coming into the season is I wanted to make it worth it. I wanted to play a game that I was really proud of, and I wanted to do it in a way that was different than the first time because people did think it was undeserving. So I used that as fuel to end up where I ended up, and it worked out.
Yeah, for sure it did. And you guys, all the physical stuff aside, you guys were in a little bit of the mix of the drama there a little bit with some of the other people in the house. So that's kind of why I wanted to know, would you be back? Because I imagine those relationships would be looking a little bit differently. Desi's, like for you with maybe a Tori or Michelle, do you think those are kind of people that you would be able to work with again if you are on the same season, or would it be a little bit of a kind of touch and go, have to see how it goes?
I think it's always a touch and go, see how it goes. For example, like Tiffany and I ended season 1 on pretty bad terms. From her end, we kind of worked it out and we worked together this season and, I think she remained loyal to me. It's still, I don't know, verdict's still out. So I am someone who tries not to hold a grudge, but I also have to operate based upon evidence, right? So I think Tori did show herself to be loyal. Michelle, she's loyal to somebody, but whether it's going to be me next season around, who knows? So I think you just have to take everything with a grain of salt, be ready to adapt. And I think one thing that's great about the challenge in comparison to something like Survivor is if things don't go your way and you do end up in elimination, you can fight your way back into the game. And then you sort of know where you stand with people. So every vote is an opportunity to gather more information and figure out who's loyal and who's not.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, Chris, it's kind of like a similar situation here because you had Corey and Fessy, like two of the people who you were kind of working with, but they were the ones who were putting you down in there into the elimination. So would you be working with somebody like Corey or Fessy if you were on another season with them?
I have no idea. I mean, it is trying to figure out what the next season would look like. It's like I'm staring into a black hole. It feels like I honestly would have no idea how I'd be perceived, whether the vets would welcome me into that, as a, rookie having a second season under my belt. Like, I just have no clue. And I think that that's the most important factor of like being a winner is you've got to be adaptable and you've got to take the game in strides. I mean, it changes all the time. And the biggest thing you do is hope that the alliance that you start with in the beginning is a good group of people that make it farther together, because then it does get easier to move middle of the game, in game, if your like original alliance is still around. Mm-hmm. So that's the important thing. And then from there, you have to just assume that everyone is having their own side conversations and no one is being truth to a fault, perfectly honest with you, because that doesn't help their game. You have to be adaptable. You've got to take a chance on who you're aligning with early and hope that group can get you far until you can start making other moves with other people.
Yeah. And I mean, especially with this season, that was the name of the game, all these shifting alliances, you had teams and it was individual. So it was a lot of having to adapt. And I know, Chris, you had the Survivor people, but was there anybody that you could really trust and lean on? I know you have Desi here. You guys were working I feel like towards the end there, you guys were working together, especially with the daily challenges, you could see it. But was there anybody that you really felt like you could trust, or were you really a lone wolf in the house there?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the greatest, at least from my side, the greatest untold storyline was my, relationship with Josh and Michelle, that the audience didn't really see, like, how close. Maybe I thought we were obviously I thought we were closer than we actually were. But
yeah, because this is surprising for me to hear.
Yeah, we had like a lot of conversations, like, and I would not have gotten through that game. There was a lot of times where I even leaned on Michelle and leaned on Josh, like, emotionally, as like support and help. Like, we were close. And so to then have things kind of unravel at the vote that Tori and Fessy voted me in, I was hoping that by proxy of me being really close with them, they would kind of vouch for me, and they didn't. That started the fracture. And then I got blindsided on the Tyler vote. Desi got blindsided. Chanel got blindsided. I got blindsided. And I was the one who ended up in the sand. And that really it felt personal for me. And so the rest of that game, as I had won the next two challenges, it was like kind of an eye for an eye with Michelle and with Josh, because obviously we were all playing our own games, but they, in my eyes, were some of the closest people that I was working with. And then when I realized that it was just me, and then Desi kind of put her arm around me in the end game there, because we were close the entire time. She just wasn't willing to stick her neck out for me and sacrifice her own strategic relationships. And we had like a mutual understanding of that. We would never come for each other. And if it came down to it, we would try to protect each other. But that was what really shifted my gameplay, is realizing that the people I had decided to ride with till the end were gonna, they were gonna nominate me before they nominated a number of other people on their priority list.
For some reason, Chris thought he was in the Vet Alliance. I don't know.
I wasn't. I didn't think I was in the Vet Alliance. I just didn't realize that I was at the bottom of the Middle Alliance. Very bottom of all alliances.
Into like you choosing Josh to go in. He was the main vote one of the times that you won the daily challenge, and a lot of people, even the people in the house, it seemed like Fessy and Corey were surprised by that. But hearing you explain this, it makes a little bit more sense that you would pick Josh, especially if you were close and he kind of portrayed you like that.
Yeah, that was the reason why we nominated Josh and Michelle, was because Desi had felt like that was a personal attack when Michelle kind of threw us under the bus and she went against Tori. And then I thought that Josh and I were like really close. Like, I was his number one, or him, me and Fess were like, he was going to look out for us, and he didn't do that. And then Michelle was protected on all sides. And so that was one vote. And then the next vote was the Fessy one. I was like, I could put in Josh, but I kind of want Josh to stand by his words, which he said he was going to nominate himself if it came down to it in a hall brawl. And it forced the vets to turn their knives against each other. And the survivor got to kind of sit back and like watch that happen a little bit. And It was satisfying from a personal standpoint, because they were the ones that really like had created a lot of emotional, turmoil for me at the end of the game there.
Oh my gosh, yeah, for sure. And as we're winding down here, I wanted to know, like, where Chris, it seemed like you had a mixed bag in terms of alliances throughout the season. Desi, you did have a solid core with Chanel and Michaela. And you mentioned a little bit that it wasn't always, you guys weren't super tight at the beginning. So I wanted to know, and I watched a little bit of your live and you guys were talking about this a little bit. So how did that trio really develop in the house, and when did it develop?
We started with this huge rookie girl alliance. Like, basically every rookie girl was a part of this alliance. Michelle was part of it only to garner information to take back to what her true alliance was. But that's kind of where it started. And then I really do still think Operation Hat Trick kind of like switched everything, where people thought that like we were coming for each other, when really it was just the vets, created this mastermind plan. But once the numbers started to whittle down, we kind of had we had heard that Chris had an end game alliance with Michelle and Cassidy, or Cassidy perceived that there was like this end alliance. So then the three of us realized that we weren't in there in game. I kind of knew I was still good with Chris, but certainly I wasn't in Michelle's in game, probably not in Cassidy's in game. So that kind of, and I mean, Alyssa S, I think, was still there at the time, but it was like, Alyssa S was kind of just there. I love her to death, but like Alyssa S was kind of just there. So it kind of, we realized that we had to work with each other, that we were the only people that we could trust in the game at that point. And just by way of the game, it solidified us together, and we wrote that out to the end.